In the last lesson, we took a look at creating ourselves a user account within the MySQL database system by using the PHP interface, PHP interface. And that gives us a graphical interface to work with. And so now in this lesson, what I want to focus in on is how to actually make the connection from PHP to MySQL. So what I'll do is open up Notepad++, and I've got a new page to work with. And just to start off with, I'm going to go ahead and save it as a PHP page, because then I can use the color coding syntax within the Notepad++ once it knows what kind of file type it is. So I'll just choose Save As. I'll go to my computer, and I go to C drive, the WAMP folder, www folder, and this is where all of my web pages are for my server, and I've created a folder called Lessons that I want to save it in. So I'm just going to call this one MySQL Connect.php. And that'll be the name of this page here to connect it. So we'll save that. Now that I've got it saved, let's go ahead and add the tags that I need. I'll use an HTML tag. I'm going to also have a head tag. Close the head tag. I'll have a body tag. And we're going to also close the body tag. And then close that HTML tag. Alright, and so now within the body tags themselves, we'll go ahead and start our PHP. And I'll space down a couple and have my closing PHP here. There we go. Alright, so now I've got the basic construct of my web page here within the PHP page. I can also now go ahead and make the connection now within our PHP delimiters. So what I'll do is we're going to use a function called MySQL_connect, and that's the actual function that will make the connection to our database. So I'm going to type in MySQL_connect, and you'll see that it turns blue because that's going to be a key function or a function within our program. I'll need to have the two parentheses and end it with a semicolon. Now there are three parameters that I'm really concerned with this particular function. The first one is the server's name. In this case, it's going to be localhost, and I need to put that in double quotes. Localhost. And then I'll put a comma after that. If the server was located somewhere else and it was not on this physical computer that I'm working on, then you would probably type in the IP address of that computer or a name of the computer or whatever, or domain name that was assigned to the computer. Just depends on your situation. But because I have the database stored on the computer that I'm creating my pages on, then it's going to just be called localhost. So that's the first parameter that I want to set. The second parameter is the username that we want to set. I'm going to go ahead and type in Matt. If you were watching in the last lesson, the username that I created had a capital M, and I'm doing this on purpose because I want to have an error end up happening. So I would normally put that capital M in there, and rather than having a small letter, because it has to be match the case of whatever it was in the username. So keep that in mind whenever you're creating usernames and whenever you're putting it in here, to keep a capital letter where it's capital or lowercase where it's lowercase. But I want an error to happen purposefully, so I'm going to leave it with a small m on my name. The last part, if you haven't figured it out yet, it's going to be the password. And I just set in password as my password. So I've got that set there. So that is what is going to make the connection to the MySQL database system. Most of the time what will end up happening is we will have to retype this code a couple times within our actual PHP block of code. So what we'll do is actually store this in as a variable and then reuse the variable over and over again, because we can create such a small name for it. And so a lot of times I've seen the $CON as being the connection variable that we're going to reference, and I've seen that on a couple different sites. I've also seen it on W3 Schools, and so a lot of people have been using that as our typical connection variable, and it stores all of this information that we're working with here in this particular variable. So now that I've got that set, what I could also do is test for errors, because if I don't test for errors, I may not know that there's a problem with my connection. So most notably, we see the if, and then we're going to go ahead and put in the if statement, the $connection, so the connect variable that I have. But what I'm doing is I don't want to test to see if it's true, I want to see if it's false, because if it's false, then we've got a problem. So what we'll do is put an exclamation point in front of it, and that's going to return back, basically it's going to be true if it's false, now that we're using the not symbol or the exclamation point. So now that I've got that set, I'm going to go ahead and space down here a little bit and have my opening and closing curly braces for the if condition. What I want to test for is I'm going to put in a function called die, which is going to basically print out any errors we may have with what we have within this function. So I'll go ahead and use this function die, and then in the function itself we're going to go ahead and just put a little bit of text. Now, so I'll just put cannot connect, and then we'll go ahead and put a ending double quote, and just to dress it up a little bit I'll put a semicolon or a colon in there. There we go. And then what we'll do is concatenate to this an actual function that's going to return back our error itself, which is going to be just MySQL underscore error. And then I'll use the parentheses for that particular function. So this is what this will give us all of our error information if we cannot connect. And so that's the typical code I see in a lot of pages when people are writing PHP code, and it's what I learned when I started writing in PHP. So now that I have that there, what I can also do is outside of this if statement, this is where all of our code would end up going, which is going to be in the next lesson where we start creating databases, start creating tables, start retrieving data, or start entering data into our database. When we're all said and done, what we'll need to do, and it's just proper syntax, is to close the connection to the database. And so what I'll use at the very end of all of my database work is a function called MySQL, and then it's going to be underscore close, and then within the function's parentheses, so as a parameter, what we'll put in there is $CON, which is our connection. And that'll close the connection for us, and I'll end that with a semicolon. And this is the basic structure that I'll need to connect to the MySQL database system. Let me go ahead and save it, drag it over here to the left, open up my browser, and let's go ahead and work here. I'm going to go ahead and go to the local host now. There's our local host. I'll click on our lessons folder that I've got my projects in, and MySQL connect.php. You can see that I've got an error, and it says access is denied for user Matt. You can also see it down here, cannot connect. This is where we concatenated our error, which says access denied for user Matt at localhost using password yes. The reason why my access is denied is because it has something wrong with it, and the fact is that I had the small m instead of the capital M. So now let me go ahead and save it and refresh it, and now you'll see a blank page. So we have made a successful connection to our database. In the next lesson we're going to start looking at how to create some things in our database from the PHP code.